This episode has been brought to you by JustNForm.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to JustNForm.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
So, I can't really say that any of us are surprised, but Cory Booker has finally decided to enter the race for the 2020 presidential Democratic primary election. And his ad is just the worst. Take a look, please.
In America, we have a common pain, but what we're lacking is a sense of common purpose.
What's up? Amen.
I grew up knowing that the only way we can make change is when people come together. When I was a baby, my parents tried to move us into a neighborhood with great public schools, but realtors wouldn't sell us a home because of the color of our skin. A group of white lawyers who had watched the courage of civil rights activists were inspired to help black families in their own community, including mine. And they changed the course of my entire life. Because in America, courage is contagious. My dad told me, boy, never forget where you came from or how many people had to sacrifice to get you where you are. So over 20 years ago, I moved into the Central Ward of Newark to fight slumlords and help families stay in their homes. I still live there today, and I'm the only senator who goes home to a low-income inner-city community, the first community that took a chance on me. We are better when we help each other. The history of our nation is defined by collective action, by interwoven destinies of slaves and abolitionists, of those born here and those who chose America as home, those who took up arms to defend our country, and those who linked arms to challenge and change it. I believe that we can build a country where no one is forgotten, no one is left behind, where parents can put food on the table, where there are good-paying jobs with good benefits in every neighborhood, where our criminal justice system keeps us safe instead of shuffling more children into cages and coffins, where we see the faces of our leaders on television and feel pride, not shame. It is not a matter of can we. It's a matter of do we have the collective will, the American will. I believe we do. Together, we will channel our common pain back into our common purpose. Together, America, we will rise. I'm Cory Booker, and I'm running for President of the United States of America.
So, surprise, surprise, right? Once again, black candidates decides to use black history or black plight or black issues to boost their own candidacy so that we can consider them the real black candidate, totally taking attention away from the day that it actually is, which if some of you don't know, it is the first day of Black History Month. That's not a coincidence, which explains Cory Booker's surprisingly black ad. Now, I say it's surprising because, well, Cory Booker has talked more about black plight in the last 2 minutes of that ad than he did in his entire career. And it's even more interesting to me that Cory emphasized the fact that somebody went out on a limb to save he and his family. So what does he do when he decides to become senator? Because he says courage is contagious. He decides to become senator and, of course, mayor and screw over every person that he could have helped. Now, I also want to be very clear about something. Yes, Cory Booker is mostly black. He's blackish, mostly. He, by the definition of black, according to the United States laws at the time, yes, he would be black in the 60s. However, his family was bourgeoisie, and they were actually attempting to move into a predominantly white elitist neighborhood for better opportunity of public education. Now, that does not mean they cared about black issues for everybody. That just means they wanted their kids to have a better education. But he likes to throw that out there. But I like to say that there is a difference, right? There is a difference between, like, just because you were a victim of a potential hate crime doesn't mean you care about everyone else's hate crimes. And in my opinion, are the things that people go through. And in my opinion, this is emblematic in Cory Booker's record. Cory Booker, if you did not know, was asked by Bernie Sanders with the rest of the Democrats to vote in favor of making pharmaceuticals cheaper. This was the moment that Cory Booker realized he better stick with Bernie Sanders going forward, because otherwise he will get utterly destroyed. Because he decided to vote against Bernie Sanders' pharmaceutical legislation. Now, believe it or not, a lot of people didn't know who Cory Booker was before that, but everybody knew who he was after that. And I had said right after the election, because he just kept doing these Facebook Live videos, complaining about Donald Trump, showing his face all of a sudden to all the protests and the rallies. And I actually said in the end of 2016, the beginning of 2017, I said, basically, he's the first candidate announcing he's going to run for president. And people were like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, I told my mentor, and he which is funny, my mentor's older guy. He knows his stuff, though. And I told him, I said, look, in 2016 still, November of 2016, I said, Cory Booker's about to run. And I told him everything that I could, that you could tell. There are certain patterns that people start displaying. They start staying in front of the media. They start grandstanding a little bit more. You all remember his grandstand against Betsy DeVos. And I just can't stand it. I can't believe it. Like, he was throwing on the whole act. That's not really him, right? And you can see this. So you saw this started happening. Cory Booker, of course, we saw it happen in Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand as well. And they kept trying to stay in front of the television screen. But the problem was he boosts himself. He starts getting a little bit of traction. Then he votes against Bernie Sanders' legislation. And then everybody is pissed about that. But then everybody is more pissed to find out the reason why. It was because, well, Cory Booker takes a lot of pharmaceutical money. A lot. A hell of a lot. I believe it was something to the tune of $200,000 just in that election cycle. That's interesting, Cory, because in your video, you were all about courage, right? Standing up to the big guy, standing up for the little guy. But you literally bowed down to the big guy, and then you took all of his money to make sure that you did not stand up to him. But you were supposed to be for the black. Who do you think is primarily affected by lack of access to healthcare and proper pharmaceuticals? There's a reason that the opioid epidemic hasn't affected the black community as it has the white community. And that's because we can't afford health insurance to get the damn opioids. I'm just being honest with you. This is not opioid epidemic is not a black issue because we can't afford it for it to be. Interestingly enough. But you are claiming to represent black people, and of course poor people, and also. But when you had a chance to stand up right there for a measure that would have helped the marginalized, the disproportionately affected black people and poor people when it comes to the healthcare industry, you change your mind. Now, don't get it twisted though. Cory Booker can flip-flop just as well as anybody else. Just as well as anybody else. Because he then announced, I am no longer going to take pharmaceutical money or PAC money or corporate money. That lasted for all of about 3 months. About 3 months, yeah. Because he was like, well, look, y'all, I'm not going to take all the oil money. I'm not going to take all the PAC money. I'm just going to take a little bit of it. Not enough to affect my vote, though, but I still got to win the election, of course. It lasted for all of 3 months. Now, we'll be honest with you. Speculatively, I figured that he made that backtrack, not because he necessarily wanted to. I don't think that he wanted to, Cory Booker loves money, but he loves prestige and he loves looking like the hero more often. That's what he is known for in New Jersey. Like they always make fun of him. It's like, yep, you never see Cory Booker passing substantive policies, but you'll see him saving cats out of burning buildings and saving damsels in distress from tall towers. Like that's how they always describe Cory Booker, because he likes having the cameras on himself and looking like a hero. So I wouldn't doubt that he wouldn't relish in the opportunity to pretend to be a progressive, but I think that he was blackmailed. And if you all don't recall, there was a bombshell story that came out that said one of Cory Booker's, either one of his former colleagues or one of his interns at some point, like, was sexually assaulted by Cory Booker in a bathroom, and it was a male. And so there was some other speculation surrounding Cory Booker, saying that he was a homosexual, which I don't think is a big deal. I don't really care. I don't understand why anybody else would. I don't understand. It's a problem, in my opinion, if he would hide it when you are claiming to be progressive and claiming to be open. But, you know, that's his personal journey, and that's really not for me to decide. But I do have a problem with you committing sexual assault if that happened. Okay, so it was very shortly after he announced he was going to stop taking PAC money that sexual assault allegation came out. So maybe he wanted to stop. You know, maybe, I don't know. Maybe he wanted to stop taking it, but he dug himself a hole by being an asshole. And that's just kind of the repercussions of being an asshole for your entire career. But it isn't just that he's constantly backed the military-industrial complex as a senator. It isn't just that he's constantly backed the prison industrial complex, with kind of one exception, which we'll get into in a second. It isn't that he just allowed election fraud to run rampant. It isn't just that he takes all kinds of corporate money. And you know the rules, you know the motto is very simple. If they take corporate money, they can't be working for you. If they're working for them, you can't have two jobs when you're taking that much money from somebody. But even as a mayor, even when he was mayor of New York, he was constantly caught up in scandals. One, we'll talk about here. As mayor, he presided over a strengthened Newark Watershed Conservation Development Corporation, which is a publicly funded entity that managed the city's reservoirs and treated water for its residents, right? Sounds good. But a state audit by the Comptroller's Office found that the agency's director, Linda Watkins Brashear, was a donor and close ally of Booker's. What a surprise. And she was using the watershed like her own personal bank account, paying herself $1.98 million over 7 years, and her salary came to just $1.16 million. They also doled out millions in no-bid contracts to her personal friends and her husband. And then Booker's former law partner, Leonardo Webster, had been acting as the watershed's counsel, and his firm profited $212,000. And he said he had nothing to do with the business that the law firm was conducting with Watershed. But he was still connected to the law firm while he was mayor. And that was the problem, right? That was the problem. You can't put yourself in precarious predicaments like that. You're taking money away from the city. And by the way, I mean, just as an aside, they still had water problems. I'm not saying that he's solely to blame for that, but I am saying that it's more crony capitalism, more crony government, and just another example of how Cory Booker doesn't really seem to have a true north. He just seems to have blind ambition. You can hear it in the way he speaks. You can see it in the way he carries himself, his mannerisms, his body language. He doesn't seem to be on our side. Another example of this, he and Ron Paul, of all people, were actually going to introduce a legislation to decrease recidivism of juveniles in the prison industry by doing more job training, giving them better opportunities after they got out of jail, reducing time, etc., etc. It was going to be a complete overhaul of the prison industrial complex. But guess what happened when Ron Paul's team went to go meet up with Cory Booker's team? You would think for something like that, you would do a huge media blast. That's not what happened. Cory Booker skated. It was called the Redeem Act. It would have been something great. And once again, I always consider Ron Paul a double-edged sword, right? Ron Paul does some fantastic things. It's weird the things that he does. Like he advocates against regime change all the time. Like he really wants to substantially address prison industrial complex, but then he says something like, "You're stealing money out of doctors' pockets and forcing them to do a job for free in Medicare for All system," which he knows is disingenuous. But that's Ron, whatever. But Cory Booker was working with Ron Paul on this. Ron Paul was ready to go he was going to go on a full media attack to get this push and get this voted on in the Senate. Cory Booker ducked and faded because his puppet masters told him to. He refused to take interviews about it. He just took some softball questions about it in a Bank of America private setting where they were hosting a conference for him. Once again, he's not on your team. Don't let him throw that I'm Barack O'Booker at you. He's not for black people. Just to make this clear, in case anybody was wondering how I felt about it. He's not one of us anymore as Kamala Harris is one of us. In fact, Cory Booker specifically he was raised in a community where he didn't have to deal with our problems. Specifically. Like that was the whole point of him moving into that community. And it shows. Now, don't get it confused with him not wanting to save people. Because he does. He has a savior complex. Like where that doesn't mean that he cares. It's an ego thing. Where he feels, oh, I'm the great white hope. Or I'm the great light-skinned hope. Where, oh, I've had all these opportunities, so it's my job to look like I've done so much for these people. When he actually doesn't do anything, but he likes it when people says that he does things. Just one interesting note, before we go. Cory Booker in the barbershop, right? Right. And of course, all black people know, like, the barbershop is a spot. It's where you go to have conversations that you really can't have anywhere else, and that is the truth. I mean, look, y'all. Some of y'all heard some of the stuff I be talking about. Y'all like, oh my God, Niko, you have such a foul mouth. Yeah, I do. But it's funny to me. Cory Booker is baby bottom bald. Literally just puts shaving cream on his head and shaves that thing. What the hell you doing in the barbershop, Booker? You know damn well you don't be going to that barbershop. Why are you playing? Who you think? That's what I'm talking about. It's February 1st and you out here embarrassing us trying to convince the world that you go to a barbershop like we won't gonna notice. Come on, dog. You gotta do better than that. You gotta do a little bit better than that. Jesus. Look, man, just because somebody announces on Martin Luther King Day or the first day of Black History Month doesn't mean they are an accurate portrayal of what may one day be true black history. There are real fighters for black history and black causes out there. Cory Booker and Kamala Harris are not amongst them. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.